Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Ah! There's so much blood everywhere. Like, yeah, there's a big monster, but at one point he has a tap routine. And, you know, there's a couple of murders, but they're not like serious murders. He's like, I'm gonna shave you, but I'm also gonna murder you. Welcome to a show about death. Look, I've got a scary shirt on. It's got safety pins and a black cat. Happy Halloween! Am I going to any Halloween parties? That would be a no. Which is very sad because I love Halloween and I love dressing up. And this year, I am not going to a Halloween party. I thought that I would just share some scary musicals that get me in the spoopy mindset and in the spoopy mood. Because I think this year I will probably spend Halloween sat with a pumpkin watching scary movie musicals, because I actually find everything scary. I don't think I realised this, but my sister came to visit this week and she was like, you're scared of everything. Every film you're like, no, it's too scary. Yeah, so I'm a wimp, but I still love the kind of excitement and fun of Halloween. So today, as I say, I'm just going to share some of my favourite musicals that are kind of scary that I think you will enjoy and you can listen to during this spoopy season while we're not all at parties. I have actually got a massive video planned with 60 theatre Halloween costumes that you can make from just stuff that you've got at home. So I don't know whether to do that in like one big video or like do two with like 30 in each. Let me know what you think. There will be musicals in this list that are like super scary and there's some that are just aren't so scary. So if you're really not into the whole blood and guts and whatnot, then you might enjoy some of my lighter choices that are still in the spooky theme. Anywho, let's get on with it. So for those of you who don't know me, by the way, my name is Amy. I make a lot of theatre content here on YouTube, so I talk a lot about musicals and Broadway and Glee and Starkid and all that fun stuff. So if you are interested, then please do subscribe. Okay, first scary musical. It's an obvious one, but Carrie. So you may only know Carrie from that dreaded Riverdale episode where they sang loads of songs from Carrie, changed all the keys, and generally just ruined the musical. But it's so much more than that. It obviously started as a book, it's been made into a couple of films, and the musical is kind of infamous. It opened on Broadway and closed very quickly, but then it got this kind of cult following, and I have to say, I really like the musical. It's not necessarily one that I would listen to all the time. There's a couple of songs that I listen to a lot, but the actual show of Carrie is one of my favourite performances and productions I've ever seen in my entire life. I saw it at the Southwark Playhouse. Evelyn Hoskins, who just was Dawn in Waitress, played Carrie. She was incredible, and pretty much if anyone ever says to me like, if you could go back and see one performance again in your life, what would it be? It would be that performance of Carrie, because it was so amazing. But it's basically about this girl. She grows up in like a very religious household. Her mum's very religious and Carrie's very like sheltered. She doesn't understand about periods and things. She gets her period and then her mum's like, you are ruined now. She is obviously very wrong. But Carrie is also telekinetic, so she can move things with her mind. There's lots of drama in the latter part of the show. I think the musical is scarier than the film. You know, like the one with Sissy Spacek? I think the musical is scarier and better, so you should listen to it. Next, again, a pretty obvious one, but the Addams Family. These aren't all gonna be super obvious, but like the Addams Family, obviously, we all know the Addams Family, but the Addams Family musical is based more around Wednesday, who is obviously the daughter, and it's all about her falling in love with a normal guy, like not a Addams Family spoopy guy. I say spoopy, by the way, because Twitter has ruined my life. But the Addams Family is great. I've actually never seen the show in real life, but I love the music. The music is great. Everybody knows pulled, you know, I'm being pulled in a new direction. But some of the other ones, like One Normal Night is my favourite. And on the original cast recording, we've got Wesley Taylor and Krista Rodriguez. Can we get any better? No, we can't. So listen to the Addams Family. Okay, next is Batboy. Batboy is such a good show and it's so underrated. The year below me in uni did it as their like final show and it was amazing. My friend Brett played Batboy and he was like ridiculous. I mean, Lawrence O'Keefe did the music, so we kind of have to love it anyway. Lawrence O'Keefe of Heathers, Legally Blonde, many musicals fame. So basically, like, they find Batboy and he's going around sucking people's blood, but also he's with this family. They rename him Edgar and they take him in. He falls in love with Shelley, and I'm bad at describing things, but it's a great musical. The music in it is so gorgeous. I'm sure you're gonna love it, honestly. Check it out. Next scary musical is Phantom of the Opera. I don't think I'm scared of Phantom of the Opera. This is more that it's kind of scary, but it's not like scary. So if you're not in the mood for lots of like blood and guts, this is probably a musical for you. The film isn't the best, but there's some great recordings online. The 25th anniversary recording at Royal Albert Hall with Hadley Fraser and Ramin is perfection. Honestly, it's just great. So highly recommend watching that on Halloween. I will probably start the morning with that. It's like a little spooky with the Phantom, and you know, there's a couple of murders, but they're not like serious murders. God's sake, Amy. So Phantom is basically about the opera house in Paris, and there is a Phantom of the Opera who lives in the theatre. He has a deformity on his face, so he wears a mask. I mean, everybody knows Phantom of the Opera, but for anybody who doesn't, I'm gonna fill you in. Basically, he has been training one of the ballet girls to learn to sing. He prefers her voice to the lead soprano who is in the opera, so makes her unable to sing, and Christine Daae instead goes to sing. The Phantom is in love with Christine. Christine's in love with Raoul. It's a classic musical theatre love triangle, but it's great. I think it's fantastic. Okay, next is Evil Dead the Musical. So Evil Dead is a musical about a group of young people who go to an abandoned cabin in the woods and accidentally unleash an evil force that turns them into essentially like zombies. There's a lot of blood and guts. There's some great songs. One of the songs is called What the Fuck Is That? And All the Men in My Life Keep Getting Killed by Kandarian Demons. A classic. So Evil Dead is based on the film series. I've never seen the film series, but the musical is actually really good. It's a rock musical, so we all know I love a little bit of a rock musical because I'm cool like that. I'm such a loser. It did a production at New World Stages, which is obviously where Heathers was kind of originated. Again, like Carrie, it's got a very cult following. There was like a bootleg released back in the day. I think Evil Dead is the first bootleg I ever watched on YouTube. See, there's a little bit of Amy history for you. So another musical that I actually don't know a huge amount about, but I just thought of, is American Psycho. I remember it opened on Broadway and closed very quickly because Jen Damiano from Next to Normal, Turn Off the Dark, the Spider-Man musical, Spring Awakening fame, she was in it, and she did a Broadway.com like backstage video thing of it, and it was so interesting and I loved it, and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be the best musical ever. And then it was like, we're closing, and I was like, wait, what? So I never really got into it, but I remember them being like, there's so much blood everywhere, so it might be worth checking out. Next is Young Frankenstein. This is one that isn't super scary, so if you're really not into the whole blood and guts vibe, it's based on a Mel Brooks film, and I saw it in the West End a couple of years ago with Hadley Fraser from Phantom of the Opera. It's so good, it's so funny. Basically, the young Frankenstein in the show is historically famous Dr. Frankenstein's grandson, and he inherits his castle and goes to the castle and finds a book that has all of his granddad's experiments in there, and he starts working on them. He creates another monster, but it's like not scary. It's like funny more than scary. Like, yeah, there's a big monster, but at one point he has a tap routine. You know, it's like my kind of scary, but it's a great show. So next is The Woman in White. One of my favorite shows that I don't really talk about often because not many people know it. It's an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, and it's based on, I'm pretty sure, like an old story anyway, but it's brilliant. I saw this in London. It was one of my first ever West End shows, and I thought it was incredible. So it's basically these two sisters. They live in this big old house, and this man comes over to teach them painting. There's a woman in white who essentially haunts the grounds and things. It's not actually necessarily a ghost story. It's more kind of like a psychological, twisty-turny journey. I'm so crap at describing things. And it's about how one of the sisters is beautiful and she's married off, and the other one is like a bit of a dud. And it's about their journeys through sisterhood and how men ruin everything. Well, at least they do in this story. Okay, what's next on my spooky list? Next is Urinetown. Such a good show. Now listen, I actually saw this show in the West End when it was there a few years ago. I really disliked it. I could not vibe with this show whatsoever. It was just not my bag. And then I went to go and see a production at Arts Ed, and then I also saw a production at my school as well, and I loved it. It's basically a town where you have to pay to go to the toilet, but everybody's poor, so like nobody can afford it. But if you go to the toilet in the streets, then you'll get sent to Urinetown where you die. I was about to say, it's not like the scariest, and then I'm like, it ends with a lot of blood. So maybe it is scarier than I'm thinking. But it's definitely got like those spooky vibes. The music's great because it's quite poppy, but it's also got like these kind of grandiose, big ensemble numbers as well. And like, Privilege to Pee is one of the most iconic songs in musical theatre history. And getting those high notes in Privilege to Pee, ooh! If you're hitting those high notes, I am there giving you my money. And I definitely think it's like a spooky musical. Come on, I couldn't do this and not talk about Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Ah! Beetlejuice is a great musical that I never got to see. I was supposed to see it back in April. Didn't get a chance to see it. And then now the show is closed and we don't know if it's coming back, so I'm very sad about it. But Beetlejuice is based on the movie where there's this girl called Lydia. She moves to this new house and is haunted by these ghosts, Barbara and Adam and Beetlejuice. And it's all about their journey together and learning who you are. The thing is, I've never seen the musical because I don't watch bootlegs anymore, and somebody said to me, oh well, I bet that now Beetlejuice is closed and you're not going to see it, that you've watched the bootleg. I haven't. The willpower is sticking strong. I've had days when I've been like really sad at home on my own in that quarantine funk, and I've been like, maybe I'll just watch Beetlejuice, and then something inside me says no, because one day you might get to see it and you don't want to spoil it for yourself, so I'm holding off. I haven't seen it, but the music is great. If you haven't listened to it, I would highly recommend it. Okay, next on my list is Hadestown. Not necessarily like a super scary musical again, but gives me kind of those darker vibes. It's based on the myth of Eurydice and Orpheus going to Hadestown, led by Hades and Persephone. It's great. The music is amazing. It won the Tony for Best Musical last year. I saw it the last week it was in London before it went over to Broadway. It's amazing. I really enjoyed it. I listen to the cast recording all the time. I actually prefer the original cast recording rather than the Broadway one. Not because of people's voices, but it's the arrangements that I prefer. But there is 2 cast recordings out there, so plenty of material to be going at. Gives me those spooky vibes without being scary necessarily. Okay, next is Rocky Horror Picture Show, a musical that I watch every year around the Halloween time. It's basically around this couple, Brad and Janet, who are driving home in the rain. Their like car breaks down or something, and they see a light. Oh, they're at the Frankenstein place. They did do a Rocky Horror episode in Glee that was interesting to say the least. Now listen, it's one of my favourite Glee episodes because I love Rocky Horror, but there was some really strange things going on there. Mainly Will wanting to be in a school production, playing a role where he only wears gold hot pants. But basically, Brad and Janet see this light, they go over to the Frankenstein place, which is run by Frankentheatre, and lots of kooky characters. It's not like frightening, scary. It's a fun show. Okay, next on my list is Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, the Stephen Sondheim musical. I like the show. It's not one of my favorites, and I actually really dislike the film. I know, I'm sorry. I have my feelings on it. Mainly that I just can't listen to Helena Bonham Carter sing The Worst Pies in London. I can't do it. But basically, Sweeney Todd is a demon barber of Fleet Street in London, and he meets Mrs. Lovatt, a different Mrs. Lovatt to me. She spells it with an E, I spell it with an A. People are always like, did you name yourself after Mrs. Lovatt from Sweeney Todd? And I'm like, no, because she spells it with an E and I spell it with an A. But that's the story for another day, my friends. Right, so he meets Mrs. Lovatt and she's like struggling to make her pie shop work, and he also hates everybody. So basically, he had his wife, she was taken from him, and it's like, oh my god, he's so angry. And because Sweeney's super angry, he's like, I'm gonna shave you, but I'm also gonna murder you. At least you'll die looking fresh with no 5 o'clock shadow, am I right? There's some great music in it. I just don't like the film. The musical is actually great. Nothing gets you more in the mood than Sweeney Todd, am I right? And my final musical that I wanted to share today is Little Shop of Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors. And it's about a killer plant. And Audrey 2 is basically, it's like a, you know, like those fly swatter plants? It's like that, but instead of flies, it wants to eat people. Not something you want around the house. I love this show. I think it's great. It's the musical that made me want to do performing arts, that got me into musicals. It was the first cast recording I listened to non-stop. Yeah, I highly, highly, highly recommend Little Shop of Horrors if you've not seen it. I'm like, it's a plant that eats you, but it's not like scary. The music's very like peppy and funny. My favorite cast recording is the original off-Broadway recording because that's the one that I grew up listening to. But there's so many recordings of it. There's a film, so fill your boots with Little Shop of Horrors content. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that maybe you found one or two that you've maybe not heard of before, or just reminded you of to get you into the spooky season. Please let me know if you've got any scary musical recommendations for the Halloween season. What are your plans for Halloween? What are you gonna do? Please don't tell me that you're gonna have a big party with all your friends. Don't tell me that. Also, let me know what I should do with this Halloween theatre costume video. Should I do 2 videos with like 30 costumes, or should I do one with all 60? Let me know. Anyway, I will see you soon. Love you lots. Bye! Happy Halloween!